Hi, everyone. I'm Saraann. I'm so excited to be joined today by Amy Yorke. She recently published Alchemy and Ashes. It recently came out on November 11th. And so I'm so excited to chat with her today. Amy, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me, Sarah. It's great to meet you.
Yeah, it's great to meet you too. So I was curious if you could just kind of like start out and just like kind of tell us like a little bit about yourself, like how you got into writing, how long you've been writing for, all that good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been writing for a few years now, but I kind of started taking it seriously about 2 years ago. And so I've been publishing under the pen name Amy Yorke. My real first name is Amy. I just made that easier on myself. But I started kind of writing, maybe a decade or so earlier than that, and then kind of learned a little bit about the writing process, tried to figure out how I would write, but did not reach a point where I was like, this is publishable and I should share this with the world. But then I read a book, a cozy fantasy book called Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree. And I loved it. And I thought, I want to read more books like that. And at that time, there weren't that many books out there like that. And I was like, maybe I'll try writing a book like this. Um, and so I tried my hand at writing a kind of cozy fantasy book, which is called The Good and the Green. And I ended up writing a full series for that book, which are kind of like seasonal, like each of them like seasons in that world. And then after writing four cozy fantasy books, I was like, I need drama. I need some conflict. I mean, there's conflict in cozy fantasy, but it is it's quite difficult, I think, in some ways that people maybe don't, think about to create like very uh, interesting conflicts within a cozy world, because you don't have the same sort of tool set of being able to be like, this person betrayed this other person, or the violence and those kind of things. And so I pivoted a little bit into romantasy. And again, it was like I was reading a lot of books in the romantasy genre. I read Daughter of No Worlds. I read the kind of the Crowns and Iaxia series, as both are by Carissa Broadbent. I read Bridge Kingdom, and I was just really enjoying those books. And I once again was like, maybe I could try to make my own. And so that's kind of what led me to writing Alchemy and Ashes, which is a very different book than my other books. But I think that was part of the fun of it, was the challenge of writing something in quite a different voice and style. But keeping some of the same kind of common themes and things that I have in my cozier series, where it's really a lot about good people trying to do their best, is something that I think comes through as well in Alchemy and Ashes.
Yeah. What was like, did you have like a different process in writing more? Because I liked that Alchemy and Ashes had like a lot of drama to it. Like it wasn't all so focused on the romance. But like, how was your process in writing different, I guess, by having a book that has like a little bit maybe more romance to it? Did you have like a different process at all?
Yeah, so my general kind of drafting process was pretty similar across the books, but I did the way that I plotted Alchemy and Ashes was actually quite different than the way I plotted, The Good and the Green. And so I'm a planner to an extent when I write. So I do come up with, I use what is basically the snowflake method. If you're familiar, if you've ever heard of the snowflake method, it's basically you start with like a single sentence about what the book is about, and then you take that sentence and turn it into a paragraph, and then a paragraph into a page. And then for me, from that point, I go into like a scene list, like a chapter list of, chapter by chapter, kind of what I want to happen. And so I work out what the ending is going to be pretty much at the very beginning. Like I know, where the book is going. And then I take that chapter list and I just write it straight. Like I start from chapter one and I write straight through it. And then at about the halfway mark, I have to change my outline because I've changed enough to do that. So I did that same process for both books. But what was different in Alchemy and Ashes is I found that as I was reading books, not just in this genre, but just across all kind of genres, and even watching shows and things, like that a lot of times you get, like a really solid opening, like where you're like, this is fascinating. And then like a really incredible last 100 pages where everything is just going, but there's like a lull in the middle, and I found that again in my own writing too, like that it like getting those kind of like exciting moments in the middle is hard. And so the way I plotted Alchemy Ashes is actually, I imagined it as a 10-episode TV show. And so I created like roughly 4 chapters per episode. And so like roughly every 4 chapters or so, there's like a cliffhanger or a big moment, a big, like, what would the end of the episode of the TV show be? Like what's the thing that compels somebody to come back and watch the next episode?
Yeah.
And so that's where I think a lot of those like bigger moments that happen were designed to be like that, like kind of like the cliffhanger, exciting moment in there. And that forced me to create these scenes that I felt like help propel you through the pages instead of kind of getting to that repetitive kind of lull piece in the middle. And again, that I had in my own writing before this. And so I found that method really helped.
Well, I definitely felt it reading the book. Like there was never a point in reading it where I was like dragging on. Like it really just like, I was just like, I have to keep going. I flew through it. So I definitely felt that. So I'm curious then, since you kind of plotted it out, like that's your initial, like the first thing you do is like plotting out the entire book. Does that mean that you have like book 2 kind of like completely plotted out, like when you're writing book 1? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely. To some extent, yes. So I have roughly I didn't take it all the way to the scene list in book 2, knowing that I would be changing quite a bit.
Yeah.
But I do have roughly like the page, like of what happens in book 2. I'm still at that point in the process where I'm, I do a lot of reading other things, watching other things, like collecting inspiration basically out there, getting, ideas. And so I'm in sort of the phase where I'm still changing that page a little bit, like I had an idea and I wish I could share with you because I'm really excited about it. But earlier this week that like changed quite a bit, like not the actual where we end up, but how we get there. And I think that is going to be quite a surprise to a lot of people. But it was one of those things where I was like, the second I thought of it, I'm like, ooh, but it really fits. Like the foreshadowing that I did in book 1 will really make this fit, but it's also very surprising. And so like now I can't let that go. It's just like that's what it is now.
Damn, now I really want to know. And I was like, it was killing me, like just being like, okay, what am I gonna ask Amy? And like, I'm like, I want to ask so many different questions, and I'm like, but I know I don't want to like, I can't like ruin anything, So I'm curious, when writing a romantasy, you don't have to answer this question if you don't want to. Do you like let your family members read the romantasy books? Like,
no. I like very specifically tell them not to. In fact, I'm probably going to make like a video that's going to be like how to skip all the spice in my book, a guide for my parents specifically. like, no, my, oh man, like my dad read my other books, and he bought this book, and I was like, please, like, I want you to really hear me when I tell you. Stop at like chapter 3. That's enough. It's as far as you need to
rip them out of the paperback for him. Like they're not even there for him.
Don't even flip. Don't even like flip through the pages. Like sometimes when I'm flipping through, I'm like, oh, there's that word. Let's not. No, I do not. My friends do read them, like, yeah. Which, like, but I have that relationship with some of my friends where like I can have that conversation with them. But like, no, I'm still haunted by the time that I told my parents we should watch this show called Game of Thrones, and then we sat together on the couch. And I'm like, why did I like, I love Game of Thrones and I loved, watching it, but why did I watch that with my parents? Like that's, so no, they do not. I told them not to read this book.
Are you married? Did I imagine that?
Yes. Yes, okay. I'm married.
Like a mother-in-law, like, does she like know about books?
Oh no. They don't even, I don't think they even know I write. No. Yeah, no, absolutely not. Great. Luckily, my husband is Taiwanese, and so she doesn't typically read books in English anyway. So it's like she'll never know. It's fine.
She doesn't have to know. Like what she doesn't know won't kill her. Oh man. So was there anything like specifically that like sparked this initial idea for Alchemy and Ashes? Like,
Um, it did come to me while I was writing. I was writing The Ancient and the Amber, which is like the third book in the Good and the Green series. And it was there is like kind of like a prince character in that series. And I wanted once again to kind of take it into a more dramatic place, but it didn't fit the like the cozy kind of world that I had there. And so that was part of, I think, where the initial like spark came from was like I was like plotting out, the third book there, and I was like, "Ooh, this would be an interesting place to take this," but I'm like, "No, this doesn't work here." And the problem with that is like once again, you have one of those ideas, and you're like, "I wanted to drop everything and
mhm.
just do that," but I did make myself, and I did enjoy, to be fair, that writing the last two books in that series before I let myself start really thinking about this one. But that was when the way my beginning of my writing process starts is in my notes app in my phone. So there's like a wild page, like I don't I think I pulled it up one time and it's like nearly 10,000 words of just notes, just like me writing down like what I'm thinking. I think the original note that I wrote down was something about that it was originally going to have like a competition element to it that ended up becoming the festivals kind of concept. Um, but I pretty quickly moved away from the idea of like deadly trials, because I pretty quickly decided who Ronan would be as a character. And I'm like, Ronan would never allow there to be a deadly trial. Like it wouldn't make sense for his character and his values for like letting people risk their lives.
Yeah.
Um, so that's kind of how that evolved.
Yeah. Well, so going off of that, like what you're saying about how you were developing Rodin's character, like I really loved, I think maybe you had posted it on Instagram, like that you wanted him to have like golden retriever. And it's like, that's what everyone truly wants, right? Like no one wants to date like a moody guy, right? Like I always feel like my husband is like a golden retriever. And it's like, it's fun sometimes to read like the moody bad boy, but it's like, who actually like really wants that, like in a partner? So I guess like, do you normally write male main characters with that kind of like golden retriever energy? Like, or what was it like writing Roman's character and developing
Yeah, so I think that what's funny is kind of the male main characters in my other series are actually a lot moodier and broodier, and like they're not as golden retriever as Ronan is. And part of that again was that like in that cozy space, it like if you have everyone just being super nice and perfect all the time, there's really no conflict. Like it's like what can you even, what's the book about? And so to me, like the contrast there of having some of these like more damaged and brooding characters in that gave me some more things to write about. But I kind of went like the opposite direction here, where again, it's like I have a dramatic setting. I have like the real like political conflict and the war and like betrayals and all of those kind of things. And to me, putting like a good person in that setting is really interesting because it's really tough for him to operate, in this world that is pretty brutal and that is, a lot more cruel than his nature really is. So that the contrast between those things really compelled me. And it was also just as I was building out, like a lot of how Ronan like came to me, I suppose, is like I imagined a lot of the conversations and things that he had, early in scenes with Sylvie. So some of those like very early scenes where he meets her for the first time were some of the first things that I thought of, and how like the way that she could or he could surprise her, in those scenes was like a lot of what became the basis of his character, because I thought it would be the most interesting is if like what her notions, like her preconceived notions of what he's like, if he kind of immediately shows something else.
that?
And then that started leading me in that direction of wanting him rather than being the brooding shadow daddy kind of, like, and again, and I do like that character, but like to your point, that's not the person that I married or that I would have wanted to marry, it's and it's part of like a, it's a fun fantasy, guilty pleasure kind of thing. But I wasn't seeing a lot of books out there that were writing about the kind of person that you would want to spend your life with, like the kind of supportive person that, and I think one of the most important aspects to Ronan's character to me is that he makes Sylvie feel safe. Like, it's that safety. Like he's all in on her really quickly. He doesn't go through a process of rejecting her or belittling her or negging her, and again, it's like I've encountered too much of that in real life for that to be part of my personal fantasy, like of what I want in somebody. Like I wanted somebody who's validating, who feels empowering. Like when she's around him, she feels better. Like she feels like more powerful, and like it improves her life in some way. And like that to me is the fantasy. Like that's the and again, it's part of my reality too. But it's like I think that it's something that I want for everybody, like as well, and that's part of why I put it in the book.
Yeah, like everyone wants to be like loved out loud, right? And like I love that about Ronan's character too, like what you're saying of like there was never really like he never really like made Sylvie like doubt how he felt about her really at any point. Like
Right.
I really liked that about him too. Like he's always very like forthcoming about his feelings toward her. I liked that. Did you draw inspiration for Ronan's character like from any like media, or like maybe it sounds like maybe your husband like has that golden retriever energy?
It's funny because I would not say he's like super gold retriever, honestly, but he's not, again, he's very like supportive, like he's just not, he's a lot more cynical than Ronan, I would say. I in some ways Ronan is my self-insert, like he is a sort of an idealized version of like who I would be in leadership if I could, that I certainly have more in common with his character than Sylvie, interestingly. Like Sylvie was a little bit of a stretch for me, and I did that on purpose, again, for the fun of like imagining something else. Like she is like a neglected third child, and I'm an only child. Like I'm I have no siblings. She has like a strained relationship with her family and her parents, and my parents are generally quite supportive, and I agree with them politically, and like it's a different kind of experience than that. So neither of them were necessarily drawn from like a direct inspiration. The powers that Ronan has, I've pointed out some in like one of my posts, like some similarities to like Jasper's powers in Twilight. Like he's got that emotional kind of connection, and because that always really interested me, and I always wanted to see like more from that kind of character of the distance that like between the difference between seeing like knowing someone's emotions versus knowing their thoughts, I thought was really compelling. And that's what when I was when I was many years ago reading Twilight, and like Edward's a mind reader but Jasper reads feelings, like that really interested me of like how different that experience would be. And so that was part of why like I kind of went in that direction. And I also just I think like when I was rewatching Lord of the Rings, and I'm like, Aragorn is just so incredible in that. I think what makes him such a good leader in Lord of the Rings is that he is emotional and empathetic. Like he cries, he like supports the fellowship like emotionally. Like he goes through a lot of things that are not masculine. I mean, they're not that toxic kind of masculinity. Like he doesn't tell anybody to shut up and stop crying and whatever. Like he's like right there supporting everybody. And so I felt like that was some indirect inspiration for like Ronan's leadership style.
Yeah, I love that. So you've kind of like hinted a little bit about like book 2. It is a duet, is that correct?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. So like do you have like a timeline at all, like when book 2 is going to come out or anything like that?
Yeah, so I am aiming for roughly May is what I'm hoping on book 2. So I do actually the longest part of my process is this planning part. I typically write fairly quickly, and it's it's mostly out of necessity because it's like obsessive, like like I'm, some of these writers are so disciplined and they're like, I write 500 words every day, and I am not that person. I am that person who like sits down and I'm like, well, I'm gonna just write just a little bit, and then it's like 5 hours later and I'm still sitting there writing. Like I wrote the first book over, I think the first draft took about 7 weeks to get through, and then I spent another few weeks after that in kind of edits and revisions. I did actually do some significant revisions on this book, versus my other books where like there were just kind of things that changed over the course of the plotting and things. So again, I think it'll take me a couple of months probably to knock out the second book, hopefully. We'll see, but yeah, I'm aiming for around May, just to give myself enough time to make sure that like it's everything I want it to be.
Yeah. Do you like, I'm trying to think of like how to word this, like, do you think you're going to expand on the universe at all? Like, or do you think it's going to be like a hard stop with book 2? Like, I've always like wondered what it's like when you're writing more than like a novel, like a duet or a trilogy or something like that, feeling like, oh, is this story actually over? Like, not even necessarily between Sylvie and Ronan, but like other characters or something like that. Do you think it'll be a hard stop after book 2, or do you think you'll spin off anything?
Yeah, I already have some spin-off ideas. So like I definitely, and I put some things in there to lead into that, and it kind of I'll see kind of how things end up at the end of book 2, like what I end up spinning off. There are definitely some characters that their fates have changed over the course of like my original vision of like where I thought they would end up.
Okay.
And so I think and in ways that I think would open up potentially some like kind of side stories. There's characters we haven't met yet that I think are going to have very compelling, hopefully, stories that would be interesting also to see what they were doing in book 1, like where you didn't have that perspective yet. So yeah, I've definitely thought of it. I've got a few different things that I'm playing with. But yeah, we'll see. I think this world has a lot of kind of stories that could be told. Even kind of like what led to this story. I think like part of what I like about this is the generational aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think that the kind of the older generation's story is also something that interests me too, other than just like the side characters that we have right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I was definitely like, when I was reading it, I was like, I hope we get like a little bit of like Seth in book 2. Cause I'm like so curious, like what's going on over there, like while he's like preparing the armies and stuff like that. Like there's this whole world outside of these feasts, that's going on. So it sounds like
Yeah,
that's going to happen.
that is certainly a direction that we're going in. And I think it will be very interesting because again, I think one thing that you've probably learned about Sylvie from book 1 is that perhaps she's not the best judge of character immediately. Like
Mm-hmm.
that she, that there's a lot that she kind of comes into with like her ideas of the way people are that she has to kind of unlearn or relearn. And I think it's going to be very interesting to see how that applies to some of the other people that we have not met yet.
Yeah. Well, so you've given me a lot of book recommendations, I feel like, throughout this conversation so far. But what like have you been reading lately that you've really been loving? Like what's your last like 5-star read? Sounds like you're a big reader too, along with a writer.
Yeah, so it's funny. I think I posted a thread like with this the other day, but I don't star rate. I will say that like just right off the bat, because for me, I have a, like I just don't think about things in terms of like I can't put a number on a book, to some extent. And so for me, like I basically divide everything into like this is my whole personality right now, or like I really liked it and enough to finish it, but it was like there are things like I probably won't revisit as much anymore, or I just don't finish it. Basically, that's kind of like
Yeah.
how I look at things. Um, so I will say that what I've been reading lately has definitely been on the higher end of the spice scale. I also have been reading things that have been just fun lately, because I like this. I put so much time and work into this that I didn't want to read things that were like crazy politically complex or like with like a million side characters. So I'm currently reading Kiss of the Basilisk, which is wild.
That one is, yep.
And I like hilarious and completely insane, and like but something about it is so compulsive too. Like it is like another one of these you cannot put down.
Yeah.
Like my husband is just like, what are you talking about, every time I tell him something that's going on in that book.
When I read that one, my husband would be like, "Oh, what are you reading?" I'm like, honestly, like I just don't know what to tell you. Like, I'm like too embarrassed to explain it. Like,
Oh no, I tell him every last detail, like and he's like, please stop telling me about what's happening in these books. And I'm like, no, you need to know this. And the last book that I read that I absolutely like really enjoyed, like, and I was surprised by how much I enjoyed it, was Ice Planet Barbarians.
oh my God, me too. Why did I like it so much?
I loved that. You know, and you know what's funny about it is like you know, blue aliens and you know all of that aside, one thing I really loved about that book was the language barrier, the way that they couldn't understand each other. And I was like, I've got to do that. Like at some point in my writing, I'm going to have to create like a language barrier couple, because I also love that in Daughter of No Worlds. I think it's really, really cute in that book where she's like learning the language and they have like those little misunderstandings. And I'm like, oh, I love this trope so much. And so I'm gonna have to put that into something. But yeah, I like, and again, I'm kind of in like my popcorn book era, where and again, like I will say something that I intentionally tried to do in this book is to try to simplify, to keep things like where instead of having to go through and memorize like all of the names of things and all the gods and all the politics and all the things, I tried everywhere I could simplify, I simplified. And I did that mostly for myself because like I work, you know, a job that is pretty intellectually intensive, where I have to do a lot of reading and writing and keeping track of things. And so I like to just be able to come home and like read something that is entertaining to me without like using so much of my like having to keep track of things part of my brain. You know, I want to be able to come along for the ride with you without having to like turn it into homework and take notes. And sometimes I get in that taking notes and turning things into homework mood, but like lately I've been totally in the like let's go along for the ride mood. And yeah, I tried to put some of that into my writing too. Hopefully like my book is pretty easy to follow as well.
It was. And I really loved the guide that you put at the beginning too. That was like so helpful, especially because like sometimes I never know how to pronounce people's names. And so when I do interviews or like recaps, I'm like, I hope I'm saying this right, but like this name, you know? So
Yes.
I loved that. That was so helpful.
Oh, good. I'm glad that was helpful.
Well, this has been so much fun. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but is there anything you want to like plug or anything else you want to say?
No, I mean, you know, like I'm super excited to, you know, be getting to meet all of these new readers and things and the romantasy space. Like, you know, I probably at some point in the future will go back into like the cozy fantasy world as well. I think there's additional stories to be told, you know, in that world too. But I, you know, like I'm really excited to be meeting so many new people and talking about books and things. And so you know, I hope people will check out Alchemy and Ashes. Alchemies, like um, Alchemy and Ashes is the name of my book. But you know, if you're one of those people who needs the second book before you want to start the first, like hopefully I'll be able to bring that to you guys in a few months as well.
Yeah, and go follow Amy on Instagram. She's like a really, really fun follow. She, like, you just posted a reel the other day about like how people like do those like flipping the pages. That like made me laugh out loud. That was so funny. So Amy's a really fun follow. Go by Alchemy and Ashes. It was like one of my favorite books I've read so far this year, really and truly. But thank you so much for talking, Amy. This was so much fun.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This was great. Thank you.